Jack it up. Jack it up.
Stream on YouTube. Okay, now people can hear us. Okay. So, hello and welcome. This is the first episode of EQ Combo. It's a little bit scuffed, but we'll get the show rolling. I will be the host of this show. This will be a League of Legends talk show. I am currently the coach of CFO, and I'm joined today with Nightstar, who is an English commentator of the PCS. How are you doing, Nightstar?
Yo, I'm excited to be on the inaugural episode, and I can't wait for Worlds to start.
I'm excited for Worlds too. I'm glad you're here. I wanted to always talk to you about certain things, so I'm excited. World starts in about 2 hours, so it's going to be crazy. It's going to be great. We get to see play-ins. We get to see some of the we get to see a little bit of every team from around the world. So I always like to watch play-ins. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be fun. So
and that's like where we get the most diversity too, right? Because once we get into group stage, it's just mostly major regions. So
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it'll mostly be teams from like the major regions. So this is the only chance, mostly the only chance we get to see at least all the minor region teams. But I want to talk to you a little bit before we get into Worlds and play-ins. I want to ask you a little bit about the PCS, CFO, because never really got to talk to you about it. So how did you feel about CFO winning? Like, what were your expectations when you first saw this roster? Did you even think that we could even win?
I mean, I believe I made a prediction or prediction during spring that I thought this roster would be able to win or would win, not would be able to, but would win summer. With how they ramped up across spring, I was pretty confident in that. I was a little bit spooked at the start of the split because some there was the roster that moved to have Atlin play in the first couple of games. They didn't look too great at the start of summer. Perhaps some MSI disappointment coming in. Not sure, but when we hit playoffs, I think everything lined up. Um, and it also never looked like there would be another team that would necessarily be able to rise up to the challenge of taking CFO, at least convincingly. Um, I think PSG and DCG certainly could have made a case in a long series, but I just didn't think they were convincing enough to be like, yeah, they can definitely take out CFO.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like this is like the same with any region. I feel like best of ones and best of fives are completely different. I don't think that we were a good
Oh
best of one team. Like I agree we did struggle a lot during the regular season, but I do think that like when the playoffs started and we started like rolling, I felt a lot more confident that we could win. But yeah, I just think we're not a good best of one team. Like we dropped a lot of games. I think because we went 12-6, so on average we went 2-1. So we'd win twice and then lose one. So we could never get that 3-0 like consistently.
yeah,
But yeah, like I guess for
which
during playoffs, like it was a lot more smoother.
yeah, which is good and bad at the same time because it means that consistency wise, it's a very good team. The only issue is, of course, group stage is going to be best of one. So,
That is true. That is true. That is a worrying trend, I guess. So I guess like let's start off with because everyone expected PSG to win, but they did drop out and lose to us 3-2, and then lose to
Hmm.
BYG 3-2. Like, did you expect that to happen? Did you expect BYG to like outperform them?
Um, BYG making it to grand finals was certainly a bit of a surprise. Coming into playoffs, I definitely outlined them as a dark horse to do well because they had they were able to split games in during the season against all the top teams. So, which was like they're good enough to beat them. They just need to figure out how they beat them and do it on a consistent basis. And when I looked at PSG, they didn't change much from the start of the split to the end of the split. So when I looked at them as a team, they started out being, hey, Gory 1v9. And then at the end of the split, it was Gory 1v9. And I'm like, wait a second. This team didn't change at all. So I had a lot of concerns about PSG, even though they had a great regular season split still. Just because they didn't add any depth to their game plan. They didn't attack the early game much better than any of the other teams. And I think, especially against a team like CFO or even BYG, who are somewhat slow starters into a game, if you aren't able to capitalize on the early game, which is where they're weakest, then you'll never get to the mid game and late game where they're just, for the most part, better.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, our strategy coming into PSG was basically as long as we can shut down Gory, as long as we can prevent Gory from popping off and carrying, um, I felt like we could always beat them because because he's like best. I mean, he did win like MVP of the season for a very good reason because he would always like
Yes.
pop off and carry these games. And I was just thinking like, as long as you just shut this guy down, like and prevent him from like hyper carrying, like 1v9ing every game, like I felt
Yeah,
like
exactly.
PSG wasn't as big as of a threat. And I feel like in our best of five series, he slowly started to like focus more and more and more. And like the other members like Hanabi and like Unified never really like stepped up because yeah, when you have like so much pressure on one lane, like usually if you're the like team is like solid, the other laners will like step up, but that never really happened with PSG, which is like good for us, I guess, because we were able to win.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that was basically my thought coming into the best of five series with PSG. But so yeah, about BYG,
Mhm.
how did you think they did towards the end? Because like during the regular season, they were ranked sixth and we were ranked fourth. So
Mhm.
like our regular season split wasn't that good, but somehow we were like they were able to like beat J Team, like beat DCG, and like get to the finals like after beating PSG. Did you really expect them to like win, or was it just like completely out of nowhere?
I for sure had them beating J Team in the first round. Um, I was for certain that J Team were absolute fakers. I just I just watched too many of their games that I was just like, this team is not good. I don't get it. So like everyone else was so sold on J Team. I just I just couldn't I didn't drink the Kool-Aid whatsoever. Um, but then the real weird one was of course the DCG one, right? Where it felt like DCG had a strange read on their approach to the series, and because of that, like they just got bounced so fast. That I think if it went to, if it got to 5 games, DCG probably wins that. Um, but they just got bounced out so quickly, they never got to respond. And I think DCG in the lower bracket also helped BYG because they were able to, they dealt with PSG,
Mhm,
so
yeah, yeah.
they didn't have to, they didn't have to go through that massive of a gauntlet, especially going in through lower bracket. So DC or BYG, I think definitely have questions about them, but they definitely earned their spot at Worlds. Um, it was just I was never going to be convinced by anyone that they'd be able to secure the first seed.
So basically, when it was CFO BRG in the grand finals again, you thought CFO would just win like straight up.
Yeah, I didn't see enough out of BYG the first time around to convince me otherwise, and um, for the most part, it was just always a bad matchup into CFO, with CFO having much better laners, and um, the best lane for BYG, bot lane is not that like again, it's not that bad for CFO.
Okay. Who is your favorite player on CFO?
My favorite player. Oh, it's not Mission, I'll tell you that.
What mission? Why
I'm
not? Why do you
sorry,
hate
Mission,
mission?
but I watched the PSG series and I spent the entire series molding about you. um, no, personally, I would say one of the bot laners. It's either Shun or Koala, because they have great personality on the interviews. So you know what? I'm all for player personality.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people seem to like Rest and Shun the most because I think those two are the most pop offish players on our team.
Um,
Like I always see people comment about Rest and always people comment about Shun. So those are probably the most publicly popular players.
yeah,
Okay.
in Rest, he always throws out the emotes during lane, so yeah, he's definitely a very fun player to watch. So I hope he keeps that trend up. Kevin, you better tell him. He better just like hard BM everyone in top lane.
I think he will, like, because even in scrims, like, dude, like this guy, he's constantly like trying to skill check people. He's constantly like BMing and throwing up emotes. Like even in like scrims when we're like playing against teams, like he's always just trying to like I think this he just likes to try to go for the 1v1 outplay and try to win. So he can like, spam like laugh or spam like emotes. This guy, even in scrims, even on stage, he doesn't change. He plays exactly the same. He plays to like just dominate lane, and that's why they call him the BM King. Like even like yeah, like I would understand on stage, like you want to try to show off a little bit, try to get people interested, but like in scrims as well, like this guy like just doesn't care. Like on stage in scrims, probably even even in solo queue, this guy is still just trying to BM. So that's why Res has like a lot of like fan attention towards him, which I understand. It is fun to watch him just like try to style on the enemy players and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big thing when I was like on other podcasts talking about, hey, what are CFO's chances? It's just this is a very hard group, and I think what it boils down to is, do they bring that same sort of individual swagger into their gameplay? Because that's what they showed in PCS, but you can't necessarily do that at Worlds. I want to see them just play with confidence, though.
Yeah, I mean I can't say because I know like Worlds this year will be in the stadium and the live audience, and in the PCS
Yeah,
we've never had that. So
exactly.
like the other players, I know they've had experience, so they'll probably be fine. It's just Shun who's going in like
Yep.
cold, and no matter how confident you can say, like, because this happened with like Mad Lions in the past when they had to go play in, I think it was 2020 when they had to go in play-ins, and they got completely
Mhm.
dumpstered. Like the players didn't perform well on stage. Like you can never know until it happens. And yeah, so we'll just have I can't say for certain that Shun will pop off, but I want to like knowing him as a human being. I feel like he is a pretty confident individual. I don't think the stage and like the
Mhm.
crowd will influence him that much. But I wanted to get your take on the name Flying Oyster. So ever since we qualified and like people keep hearing our names, I always see on like Reddit and Twitter people just like memeing and laughing about the name Flying Oyster. What do you think about the name Flying Oyster? Did you like it? Did you hate it?
I mean, it's certainly a ridiculous name, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very contradictory. Oysters don't necessarily fly, but hearing the backstory about the reason why it's called flying oyster just makes a lot of sense. And you know what? It's the brand of PCS literally coming onto the world stage. So it's just free advertisement for our PCS. So I am all for it. And when you look at some of the other teams, they've got nothing. They've got nothing on us.
Yeah, I hear it's the best name or the worst name. Cause like when we started like winning and stuff, and like people were asking, cause I think it was at the end of spring when we lost to PSG. That's when people started to hear about the name Flying Oyster, and
Oh,
I went on Twitter to like explain like, oh, why is it called Flying Oyster? And I was like, well, Flying Oyster, if you say in Chinese, it's like family, which sounds like
yeah,
family, which is the name or it's the motto of the
yeah,
CTBC like bank, like we are family.
yep.
So I did that for a bit, but then someone made a graphic explaining like, oh, this is how you say in Chinese and it sounds similar to family. And I was like, wow, like people are already making graphics for this team. Like we didn't even qualify. Like what's going on? Because I don't even have to explain anymore. Because people used to tag me like, oh, why does it mean that? And I would have to come in and I type my little spiel. But now people just like have
Copy
like
pasta.
yeah image link to just explain
Yeah.
everything. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's really good. Like. So yeah, I either hear it's like the best name because I don't know if you saw, but Cloud9 did their own like tier list for the world's teams, and
Oh, really?
Fudge said that Flying Oyster was like the worst name he ever heard, and like I saw the 100 Thieves video, and
Mhm.
Nate Shot said that it's like a
Yeah.
cold name, like the best name ever. So it's like it's either the best or the worst. I haven't really found anyone that's like, it's all right. So I'm actually kind of happy with the name. I think it's good that people are talking about us and are excited or interested.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I can see why it doesn't really land in the middle. You're gonna have strong opinions on the name, um, and also just the fact that uh, I think it really boosts the appeal of the name if you do know the backstory. So
Yeah,
people who rate it low, they just don't know. They don't know.
they don't know, but they will know once World starts.
Yeah.
But before we talk about group stage, I do want to talk about play-ins because it's
Uh huh.
happening
Yep.
in like a few hours from now. So I'll try to stay up for that, but I'll probably have to. I probably won't be able to make it because it starts at like 4 a.m. like time in like Taiwan, which is like super early. So I don't know if I'll
Uh
be able to stay up for the whole play-ins, but I do really want to see it. But so yeah, we have like group. Let's start with Group A first because I think that's the easiest group to talk about because we have Beyond Gaming, Chiefs, Den Nation, Evil Geniuses, Fnatic, and Loud, right? So that's
Yep.
like it's probably the most interesting group I would say to talk about
Uh huh.
because I feel like Group B is kind of like top two is pretty much locked
Yeah.
in. I don't think most people like wouldn't bet on top two changing, but I feel like
Yep.
Group A, like any given day, if you ask anyone, you could probably change like almost like everything. Maybe like people
Mm-hmm.
might like look down on Chiefs because they're from Oceania, and you know
Yep.
not many people are big
Yeah.
fans of Oceania. But yeah, so I want to ask you this. Let's go out. Who do you think will be the top two teams from Group A?
Um, I think it'll be EG, and I think it will be BYG.
Okay,
I
so
think
Fnatic's
EG
not
win the
top
group.
two.
Yeah, I think Fnatic come in third. It could change, of course, because of the fact that they've got upset coming in. So at least they have one of their bot lane players that will be playing. Hylissang is going to be coming in later. I think he's coming in tomorrow. Um, But the thing with Fnatic was that when I did tune in occasionally to the LEC, which wasn't like a ton, but I tuned into the playoffs, their drafts were really sporadic. They were very all over the place with their draft. So I think the draft consistency that we get from BYG will be able to put them over the top in that group. And it's still best of ones, right? So a lot can happen. I just don't quite have full faith in Yamato's drafting
Okay,
this season.
I do have to say, like before we continue, I do have to say that I haven't really watched any games from like Brazil, Latin America, and
Mm,
Turkey. I think those are the three regions where I know next to nothing about. So I'm just gonna
mm,
rank them off historical skill. I did watch playoffs for Australia because I wanted to watch Order play, but besides that,
uh-huh.
I know nothing about these teams. So I'm just gonna put them bottom two, just because I can't really bet on a team or gamble on a team that I know nothing about. So I'll just stick with
Right.
comfort. But yeah, Upset will be back today. Hillsang will be back
Yep.
tomorrow. So
Mm-hmm.
the one thing is like because if you know without any roster changes, I would still think Fnatic would win like the group. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
Europe third and Fnatic was looking really good towards the end of playoffs. They lost to
Yep.
Rogue, but Rogue won everything anyways. So I don't know how much you can
Uh-huh.
take off that. I was gonna have like Fnatic first, but maybe without Hylissang, they might lose the first game to Evil Geniuses. So maybe Evil Geniuses will be first, but then it's like the problem is that like I know little about EG because Kaori is coming in. Like Danny's
Mm-hmm.
not playing and now Kaori is coming in.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be it's not like this team I was watching this whole like year long. It's
Yeah.
like it's not the same team. It's like gonna be a different
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like accurately rank these teams. But I will say that in playoffs against 100 Thieves, it didn't look that bad with the Kaori. They looked like they were able to function.
Mm-hmm.
They played pretty well. Kaori looked like a pretty good AD carry for the 5 games
Yep.
he did play. So I guess yeah, I would have to go with EG first, but I would probably put Fnatic second. I feel like
Mm.
once
Mhm.
Hylissang comes in, I feel like they should be able to beat Beyond Gaming and DFM.
Yeah. There's certainly a case for really all these teams to try or to go for either second or third seed. Like you can talk about DFM. They have two of the top CQ players right now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I believe it's Yaharong and Steel are doing really, really well right now in CQ. So, um, they're going to be coming in with a lot of confidence. I think Loud themselves, their 80 carry is really, really good. Um, so maybe they're able to play off the back of him. Chiefs, no one's expecting anything out of Chiefs. So and they like clapped their region. So I don't think this team is bad by any means. Because when you just giga stomp your region that hard, you always have a case.
Yeah. My counter argument would be that maybe the competition wasn't that good, but
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, obviously, I don't watch Oceania that closely, so I can't really say for certain. I'm judging like the way I judge Chiefs is like how good they looked in finals, which they looked pretty good. They won 3-1, I
Hmm.
believe, and like how
Yeah.
good Oceania does historically. And I feel like historically they've always been like towards the middle to
Yeah.
bottom. Like sometimes they've
Yep.
like
Exactly.
had great performances, but I feel like because people talk about that MSI run where they were able to tie with I believe Unicorns of Love, and they lost to
That.
RNG. They went like 2-2 against Unicorns of Love, but then lost like the
Yeah.
rest of the games, and RNG was up like 8-0 or something like that.
Yeah.
People want to
Exactly.
talk about that, but I feel like that was more of the like bad group format, like more
Yep.
bad group format and
Yep.
less of like I forget the team name. Was it Penta? Of like the Oceania team like
Pentanet. Yep.
performing well, even though like it's kind of
Yep.
like rude to like discredit the team and say like, oh, you got
Hmm.
lucky. Like I feel like yeah, a little bit was like that. Like obviously they had to perform, but I feel like a little bit of it
Yep.
was luck. So that's why it's hard for me to be like super hyped. Maybe if Chiefs
Hmm.
performs again, like I feel like maybe then I have to start thinking about them as a real contender and like a real dark horse. But for now, I'm gonna put them towards the bottom two with Loud.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, I don't think anyone's gonna put them top two. At best, I think they'll be able to sneak in fourth. This is a very tough group, or a very balanced group, I should say,
Yeah, yeah.
where everyone feels pretty capable of beating everyone. Um, but for the most part, I have EG first because
Mhm.
they don't have to deal. They don't. Their roster move was an expected one from them. Uh, well, it was unexpected coming into finals, but they've had time to figure it out after that. Unlike Fnatic, where it's a very late second, last minute change up, so you're not necessarily fully prepped. And then EG also don't have to deal with jet lag, which is also an underrated component.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I feel like jet lag would. I mean, I've never really experienced jet lag that much. I don't really travel too much, so I'm not sure
All
how
right.
much it would affect. But I can understand if people have trouble performing with jet lag. But yeah, like I guess so. If you have EG first and BYG second, do you think BYG will get out of groups because they'd have to win the best of five? I guess until we talk about
Eh,
which team from Group B is going
yeah.
into the best of five, but you won't
Yeah,
know for
I mean,
sure.
barring any surprise,
Yeah, yeah. Let's
barring
just
DRX
assume
getting knocked into
DRX and
third,
RNG's top two. Like the order can change, but let's just assume that
yeah,
those two teams will be top two.
yeah, like it should be RNG first, DRX second. Um, if they get surprised, then that really sucks for Group A, right?
Yeah, yeah,
If one of
that would.
them drop a game to not those two, um, then It doesn't suck for Group B. It just sucks for Group A, which is really funny to think about. But um, yeah, the expected. Let me pull up the group again. It would be expected that we play either Mad Lions or Saigon Buffalo.
Yeah, it would be one of those two teams. I
Um,
would think.
I mean, it's certainly an interesting matchup, right? Because both of these teams are very much not beyond gaming. They are going to be much more aggressive during the early game and really be more flippy. So it could potentially be a bad matchup, but overall, I just think um, they're not gonna hard gap the solo laners, which is generally the issue for Beyond Gaming.
Okay. I guess the last team I would try to promote is DFM. Like coming from, the LGL,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm
Yep.
not like I'm also a North American fan. So like the problem with me is like I'm very pessimistic. I'm always just like, oh, NA sucks. So I just carry that over to LGL. I'm just like, oh, LGL sucks, DFM's never gonna win. But when
Yep.
they do, I'm just like, yeah, I never doubted you guys. But I always doubt like NA and Japan just to like
Mm-hmm.
just because that's I guess this is how I view the game. But I will say if you never watched DFM play, if you don't know them too well, my favorite player is always Utapon. Like he played
Yep.
AD carry, played top, AD carry again. I feel like Utapon is the best Japanese player of all time. Like I feel like in Japan, there's not a better player than him because he plays against a lot of like Korean bot laners in the
Mm-hmm.
LGL, and he's always like doing well. He's always sometimes most of the time he's outperforming them. This guy is like a beast, and he's been playing for like years. So if
Yep.
DFM does surprise me, I'll be like really happy. But I'm gonna put them fourth because that's just how I am. I wouldn't even put EG first, but now that I think about Fnatic and their roster issues, I guess they might be first, which is kind of worrying because I feel like anytime NA gets hyped, they've always just like
Right. NA expectations are here,
yeah.
then that means they're going way down.
Yeah, so like it'll just probably be the opposite by the end of the like first week of group
Mm,
stage. It's just NA things, like you expect them to do
yeah.
well, then like oh they can't beat IG, then they beat IG 3-1 in a best of 5. You're like, wow, they can win MSI, then they just lose 0-3 to like G2. It's just like, oh okay, that's NA for you. So I guess it is a little bit worrying, but let's move on to group B. So we're gonna assume
Uh-huh.
that
Mhm.
RNG and DRX is first and second, but which one do you think will be first place?
I think it's RNG. Um, and the reason being is I think they're just again it's more of the consistency factor for me. Regardless, both of these teams will be in or should be in play-ins. Um, but RNG is just too good. And LPL is just it's too hard to argue against LPL because of their playoff format. You have to do so much just to make it to Worlds. Now, you know, and it's almost like the opposite for some of our teams, like Mad Lions, who get memed on for winning 0 best of fives and being at Worlds, right? So um, it's just a very stark difference of formatting, right? So RNG are just too battle tested to not come in first, and DRX maybe they're able to surprise. Fingers crossed for Juhan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I always forget Juhan's on that team. Like, yeah, that was wild that they left. Like, he left PSG after MSI, but yeah, he's on DRX now. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's swapping in and out with Pioshik. So,
yeah, he's at Worlds. PSG isn't, so
so
what can you say?
I guess you can say that Juhan wasn't the problem with PSG.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
exactly.
I also have to put RNG first.
Mm,
Like I just think the LPL, like watch it because I watched a lot of LCK and a lot of LPL. Those are like the two main
mm,
regions I watch, and like they're just so good. Like I think the LPL is like the format's really fun. Like watching LNG like play 7 best of 5s, it was like it was a ridiculous amount. I believe it was 7. They won 4 of them, and they still didn't make it to Worlds. But
Yep.
like that is like you can play so many games and still fail
Yep.
to go to Worlds. This is
Yep.
ridiculous to me. Like and like Mad Lions like losing 2 best of 5s, they still go to Worlds. It's like I feel like the LPL format is superior. Like you see these teams
Mm-hmm.
like play, and the LPL
Mm-hmm.
looks so good. I mean I'm not saying like LCK is not good, but I feel like the gap between like the first place team and the fourth place team in LCK is a lot bigger than in
Yep.
the LPL. I feel like first and
Mm-hmm.
fourth, the gap is a little bit smaller.
Yep.
So that's why I feel like RG is going to be a much tougher opponent.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree with that. Um, Again, for like LCK, yeah, they've improved their playoff format, but it's still not to the same degree. So,
Yeah.
uh, you don't need to. You can sort of. I don't want to say fluke your way in, but it's almost sort of like that, where you
Yeah.
can just stumble into a world slot. But regardless, it should be those two teams, and then you're like the expected third and fourth would be again Mad Lions and Saigon Buffalo. Um,
Hmm.
Wildcats are a fairly talented team, but I don't know as a whole squad that they're good enough to make it past either Mad Lions and Saigon Buffalo. And Isurus, if anyone is a fan of LLA, close your ears now because this region sucks. I don't know. I don't know how to save this region. I just don't. Every year, their rep just gets banged out 0-0 whatever in groups. The region just needs help. And until the region as a whole gets better, then like their world's rep will never be good.
Yeah, I haven't watched a single game. I saw ADD was on this team, and I was like, "What? That guy is still
Yeah, I'm
playing?"
hyped.
Like that's basically it. Like whenever I see like Korean players that like I've forgotten about show up at Worlds again on like a different like
Yeah.
roster, I'm like, "Whoa, that guy's still playing! I want to check him out." So that's the only
Yeah.
reason why I would watch Isurus, just because I kind of want to see ADD play. But yeah,
Hey,
like
last night he went like 16-2 on Teemo
yeah, I
top.
saw that. Like, people were like, "Oh, there's Timo in Champions Queue." I was like, "What?" And he's like smurfing on people. I'm like, "Okay, I'm a little bit more hyped now." I don't think he'll play Timo, but like, I like that
Yeah.
kind of attitude. I like that,
Yeah.
like, like pizzazz, I guess, of like picking out weird stuff. But yeah, like, I'm gonna put Isurus and Istanbul Wildcats in the
Yeah.
bottom two. I
Yeah,
don't
I
have
think
opinions on them.
yeah, just another thing to add on Isra is I talked with someone who watches the region and casts it unofficially. Uh I think their average game time for Isurus was like 36 minutes.
36 minutes?
Average game time. That's like
Yeah,
forever.
that's really long.
Yeah. And so again, the region has a lot of innate issues, and they were just telling me like no one wants to take first dragon ever. It's like 10, 12 minutes before first dragon ever gets looked at. For the most part, you just sort of use it as a reason to just fight, but then you never take it. You just come back and fight again. I'm like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. So there we have it. They usually see the elder dragon, and if you don't ever take the first dragon that fast, well, there you have it. 36 minutes.
Well, now I kind of want to see Saigon Buffalo play against them because, like,
Oh God.
I love Vietnam, dude. I love the VCS. I've been watching them a lot this year because we scrim against like the VCS teams a lot. So I was trying
Alright.
to see which teams would be good to scrim against. And dude, like we scrimmed like the seventh place team, and they play like they're gonna win worlds. Like they're always going for plays. They're always looking for like tower dives. Like they're constantly like trying to fight, even though they're like this is not some teams like some players are just not skilled enough to win. But it doesn't
Right.
matter in the VCS. Like they play like they're just good enough to win. And I respect that style. I love the hyper aggression because when we first started
Mhm.
scrimming them, it was like, whoa, what is going on? But we can't it's like oh we can just chill. They wouldn't dive us. It's like oh they're looking for a tower dive because usually
Mhm.
when you're behind you wouldn't look for plays, but like
Right.
in BCS like you're always looking for plays, and I love this region. I love watching them.
Right.
They are like a little mini LPL, so I'm excited for Saigon. I'm so glad that they all got their visas. Like there's no visa
Yup.
issues, no excuses. I mean, I guess they're gonna be late, but they're just gonna go in and they're just gonna
Right.
play like psychopaths, and we're just gonna enjoy it. So I think Saigon Buffalo is gonna beat Mad Lions, and I feel like they have a chance of beating a team in Group A in a best of 5.
Mhm.
Even though I think it'll be, I don't think they're the favorites compared to like if Fnatic has no issues or if VG has no issues.
Right.
I still think like those teams should win, but I think it'll be a very good or close BO5.
Yeah, it should definitely be really fun to watch. A best of 5 with Saigon Buffalo in it, regardless. Um, and they would have to beat Mad Lions theoretically in a best of 5 too, right? So that itself
That's
will be
true.
very entertaining because Mad Lions themselves are pretty aggressive, and I mean, there's always the other meme where, the first team LEC was just all Mad Lions except for Armut.
Oh yeah,
So
that
the skill level is theoretically insane on this team, except for Armut.
like I think the PCS has issues. Like one of the things I liked was the playoff format. And like I saw the voting, I thought that was good. Like, dude, the LEC, that voting, when I saw that, I was like, what what the fuck? Like how can you think like they have 4 good players, like 4 of the best players in their position, plus the best coach, plus the MVP, when they didn't even like unanimously get first place. They like tied for first place. Like I was like, that makes no sense to me. Like it was just like wild. I was like,
Yeah.
how shit is Armut in this team that he's like he must be like a Diamond 2 player, dragging all the other members down. That's why they can't win.
That's what Dom tweeted.
That's
He was like,
the only reason.
how
There's no
bad
other
is
reason.
Armut for them not to get for not to like not even that, but to not win a best of 5 too, right?
They can't
If you
even
just
win a single
consider
best of
that,
5.
right?
Like I like Mad Lions and I like players, but I was laughing so hard every time they lost
Yeah.
because I could just see whenever I close my eyes, I just see the tweets going like, "Wow, first All Pro and can't even win a game." And I was like,
Yeah, exactly.
"Oh, it was so much fun watching that." And I was like, I still don't understand to this day how they got that. Like, because I mean, like that's a whole other issue. I can go on for like hours talking about
Yeah.
the voting and stuff, but yeah, the
Mhm.
LEC voting was really bad. Like it made no sense. But yeah, I guess
Yep.
let's go on to the group stage. So
Mhm.
we can let's start with Group D because I'm in it, so I would like to talk about that group first. I feel like that would be a little bit more interesting. So we're just gonna assume RNG makes it out. They'll be automatically slotted into Group D. So just inhale as much hopium as you can. What are the chances that we make it out of groups?
So my conditions for CFO to get out of this group is we split 1-1 with either Genji or RNG, then we play them in a tiebreak situation, and then we beat them. So I have CFO. If they do come out, it's through tiebreak. I don't think they ever get out straight up. I'm going to be fair. Going to be honest here. But it also means you guys have to clap 100 Thieves. Give us the 2-0. If it's not a 2-0, I'm going to be sad. But for sure, I have them above 100T, not just because of the 100T video, but, I have confidence that Mission will outplay Abadage, who did not look that great this year. So I'm all about this mid lane Diffie.
I'm more interested in the top lane Diffie. I feel like someday might struggle against Rest because I guess Fudge kind of plays really aggressive at times, but I feel like there's not many players, like not many top laners in the LCS play hyper aggressive, play to like win lane. So I'm actually curious to see if someday we'll struggle against that. But so the way so I've inhaled as much hopium as I can. The way I see us winning or getting out of groups, so Gen G will 6-0. No one will beat Gen G. So that's actually
Okay.
good for us. And then if we beat 100 Thieves 2-0 and beat RNG 1-1, then if
Yeah, then it's
if
a
RNG
3-3.
can go 3-3 or 100 Thieves wins one game against RNG,
Yeah.
then that puts them, at 100 Thieves at 1-5, RNG at 2-4,
Mhm.
and then us at 3-3. No tiebreaker because adding a tiebreaker, I don't know if I can handle that. I don't know if we can win that one too. So that's why I'm hoping for an upset. 400 Thieves against RNG, not against us though. But
Yeah.
I think this group is going to be tough. I do think
It's going to be tough.
having Gen G, I do think is a blessing in disguise because having one team just dominate the rest of the group kind of makes it easier for the second place team to make it out of groups as well. So as long as we are able to, beat RNG and beat 100 Thieves, like I don't think we'll straight up beat RNG 2-0. I feel like that's going to be really difficult. But obviously, like if I'm just like using regional strength, using predictions, just like eye test, I can see us winning 1-1 and then maybe losing the tiebreaker. But I feel like if we win 1-1, will put us in a really good spot to make it out of groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we'll also see how Gen G perform, right? Because a lot of their players, I think, haven't been at Worlds in a little bit. I'm trying to remember. Doran's time at Worlds was not good. So maybe
Yeah.
top lane, Rest just comes out, just claps Doran, and we win a game that way. I'm down for
Yeah,
that.
I can see that. I feel like in our group, I guess Breathe is a little bit different, but Someday and Doran, they're mostly like the weak side tank player, whereas Rest for us, like he rarely ever plays tanks. Like he's best when he's playing that Aatrox, Renekton, Camille, Gwen,
Yeah.
trying to win lane and trying to smash people. So I can see us winning against Gen G. Obviously, like I feel like the chances of it going to be small, realistically speaking. But if we do win, if somehow we are able to beat Gen G, I feel like that is going to be the key like component to beating Gen G. Is if Rest and Gemini can outplay Doran and Peanut. If that doesn't happen,
Yeah.
then I don't know if we can win. It's going to be really tough.
Yes. My hopium scenario is RNG 1, CFO 2, because I do have RNG predicted as my champion.
Wait, RNG first in the group, CFO second?
No, well, that's the hopium result because I have RNG winning Worlds. So that way I don't lose my prediction for Worlds, but I
Wait,
also
why do you
have my
have RNG?
PCS team coming out.
Why do you have RNG winning Worlds?
Because it's usually not the best LPL team.
Yeah, so I put TES,
So-
I put Top Esports because
Oh,
it's usually
man.
not the first seed team that wins. So I was
Top
like,
esports is so much fun, but they're also like, Jackie Love is just going to in as Caitlyn in one of these games and just die.
yeah, but the
It
current
could
meta
be
is
game
different.
5 of one of these series.
Well, that's actually a good transition for Group C because Top Esports is in that group. So yeah, Jackie Love. Like when I watch Jackie Love play, like he looks like he's like a mechanical beast. Like during those playoff runs, like when he gets caught out and dies, I'm just like, how could you do that? Like that is ridiculous. But then like
Yes.
if you just like go to the next game, you just watch him and forget all about it. You're like, wow, this Jackie Love guy's like really, really good. Like he's just smashing people. But then like he just gets caught out with one game in the series and just throws the whole game. And you're just like
Yep.
wondering, how can this guy be considered a top 80 carry? Like the one thing I would want from my 80 carry is to not get caught out, not like in or like get overextend.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, but he's just so mechanically good. Like it is insane the way he plays those team fights. So yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like, I mean, DRX will probably be in Group C, but I will say
Mhm.
I think Top Esports will be first, and I feel like Rogue will be second place. I'm going in for that Rogue hype.
I think this group is the most interesting because all these teams are super volatile, right? We just talked about top esports. Maybe Jackie Love just ease in as Caitlyn in one of these games, and then they just lose straight up to a team that you're not expecting them to lose to. DRX themselves are very, very flippy as far as teams in the LCK. We already know what Vietnam brings to the table. And then Rogue, for Rogue, you have the existence of Malrong, right? He is a coin flip in the jungle. He's just pure coin. Um, so this is hard to predict group because there can be a number of surprises that happen. So what are your thoughts on like Gigabyte Marines in this group?
I think Gigabyte
Since I
Marines
assume
can
you
play
you
spoiler.
scrimmed them.
Yeah, we scrimmed them quite a bit. Like they are a really good team. Like I feel like people don't understand, like, because I mean Vietnam hasn't been at like in an international competition for like 2
Yep.
years now, so I think people have forgotten how good Vietnam is because nobody really talks about it. It's on the same time as LPL and LCK, so it's hard
Yep.
for me to watch them consistently. Cause yeah, I
Yeah, and
watch LPL,
PCS.
LCK, yeah, PCS as well. So like sometimes I'm not even at home. I'm like out, like at the studio, and then
Yep.
they're also playing at the same time. And then there's like LGL, so like there's like 5 regions where all they have the
Yep.
same similar time zone. So I prioritize the LPL, LCK. I guess PCS I prioritize first, and then underneath that is like the 2
Right.
major regions, then Vietnam, and then Japan. So it's like it's hard for me to like get like a proper read on them or watch all their
Mhm.
games, but whenever I do, it's like it's always fun. I just feel like the picks they do are really creative. I feel like Gigabyte Marines is just like they're such a fast-paced team. I feel like the players are all mechanically like really good. The way they play the game to me is like really interesting because I feel like they're very proactive. They never wait around and like try to scale up to like late game. They're always like trying to look for plays. You saw like Saigon Buffalo at MSI against like DFM. They're like constantly like even when they're behind, they're still trying to like play like they're ahead and still
Mhm.
trying to find that gap. If you make a
Right.
misplay, they will be in there and
Yep.
they will try to win the team fight. So I'm excited. I don't think they're just like they could make it out of groups because I feel like besides top esports, I mean they all have flaws, but I feel like top esports is just like to me like looking at the team, I feel like they're just the
Too
best.
mechanically gifted.
Yeah, but I feel
Yeah.
like DRX and Rogue, they are beatable for GAM.
Yeah. This is a fun group that I also wouldn't mind if all the teams went 3-3 and we just have an entire day of tiebreakers.
I could actually see
Um,
that. I could see like a scenario where there's like 3-3-3-3 for all the
Yeah.
teams. I feel like Group C is like the
And-
closest, like between the top and
Yeah.
the bottom.
that is the most exciting group for me. And like if you put any other LPL team into that group, it probably just not as interesting, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, top esports takes it to another level with how exciting this group is going to play out. Um, yeah, top esports certainly should still be expected to come out, but last year, FPX was expected, and they went 2-4 and lost in tie breaks. So, I feel like there's going to be one of those LPL teams that does disappoint. There's 4 of them, so, there's a chance. And Top Esports could do it. Could be that one. I would love to see Gigabyte Marines come out of this group because it would really justify, VCS coming back into Worlds and put more respect on the minor region names.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah.
always cheering for them. So I am very hopeful for it. But regardless, Group C is the group to watch if you tune into any of them.
Yeah, I feel like it's the most interesting because I can see a world where Gigabyte Marines, like, or I guess they're called GAM now. Like, people
Oh
I
yeah,
saw on Twitter, like people
yeah.
correcting, like, oh, they're just GAM. It's kind of like G2 or TSM. They're not Gamers 2 or they're not Team Solomid. They're just initials. So GAM
Gamers too.
GAM is. I feel like I'm excited to watch them play. Like I think there's a
Hmm.
world where they can get out of groups. Like it is pretty like I think it's like really fun to think about the fact that DRX can be fourth place in this group. Like I feel like
Hmm.
China number one, like EU or Vietnam like second, third, and then Korea could be number four. I feel like that is how good. Like, cause I think Rogue is really good. I think Gam is really good. So I feel like DRX will struggle against them. So I do think this is the one time where, like, in a while, where DRX or a Korean team will get
Or
fourth
LCK.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, an LCK team will get
Yeah.
fourth place. I think it's
It
possible. I'm
also,
excited for it.
yeah. It also may be Def's last Worlds too.
Yeah, when you think about that, it is a little bit sad.
Yeah.
I do want him to I do want him to like do better and win worlds, but I don't know. Like his team is,
Yeah.
it's just not good enough. Like
Yeah.
I just don't think DRX is a strong enough team. I think like
Yep.
Zeka as a good mid laner, but
Hmm.
besides that, I feel like DRX has too many flaws. I just don't think they
Yeah.
have the firepower where they'll be able to beat a Rogue or a Gam.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So
In the
mhm,
end, you have to have some sort of difference maker,
yeah.
and DRX does seem to be lacking in that department.
Yeah, I agree. So moving on to Group B, I guess depending on your group draw, it could be like Mad, it could be EG, it could be BYG.
Beyond,
Yeah,
yeah.
BYG can be a possibility. Because if Fnatic does make it out, it'll be Group A. And then out of all the other teams, I think they'll automatically slot it into Group B. I don't, unless, yeah, no matter what situation, I feel like any other team that does make it out, they'll have to go to Group B.
Hmm.
So depending on that, I still think that it'll just. I don't think it'll matter. I don't think there's going to be a playing team that could challenge one of these three teams for Group B. I feel like they'll be
Hmm.
automatically fourth. No matter how I think about it, it's going to be like really tough.
Yeah, if BYG make it out of play-ins, they're probably just going 0-6
Yeah,
like group stage.
even if
It is
EG make it out, I feel like they're going 0-6. I don't know any team in play-in
mm,
that could probably not go 0-6. I mean, like statistically speaking, they might go 1-5, but like I think they'll just be locked in
right.
fourth place. I don't see that changing with any team. BYG,
Yeah.
EG, Mad. I feel like they're just all not strong enough to win.
Hmm. For EG, I just there's not enough time for them to get fully accustomed to Kaori. I think he's very good, but um, even with Danny, they would still have some issues. Right, this team is very much about being able to team fight very well. And I think the team fight on some of these other teams are just better. That said, prediction wise, I would say Jingdong have to be like everyone's consensus first
Yeah.
first seed there.
Well, the interesting
And
part
then
is who do you think
there's
is second?
yeah, and there's the question of who's second, and I would say G2 personally,
G2? Okay.
because Damwon have just had so many issues with their shot calling that if they didn't fix it by the end of playoffs, which they didn't, it's like who's to say that they figured it out in the time sense, right? It feels like more of a personnel issue rather than just like something that's easily fixable.
Okay. I don't know if I can go with the G2 hype because I am a G2 fan, but like, yeah, just I feel like the player strength on Damwon is just like it's hard to ignore. It's hard to be like, oh, like
Yes.
they just won't. Because if they do get it together, I think they're just gonna make it out. Even if they don't have like proper cohesion, I still think that like Damwon is just overall a better team. I just think they're in a
Mm,
in a better region, better team. I just feel like all the like cards are stacked against G2. Like they have an uphill battle compared to like
mm,
Damon's like
mm.
regional strength and like his historical strength, like as a league. All that I feel like is in favor of Damwon. I just think that Naguri. I mean, Canyon hasn't been looking that great this year, but like the names like Naguri, Canyon, Showmaker, I feel like those three already. You'd be like, wow, how could you ever beat this team? Because yeah,
Y-
I think Broken Blade is good, but Flocked and Targamas, they're G2's bot lane. I just think they're gonna have a hard time because I feel like
mm,
the strengths of both teams are gonna be in the to the top side, top jungle and mid. And yeah,
mm.
Canon did
Yeah, I
struggle in
mean,
Korea, but I feel like Korea is different from Europe.
yeah, I can definitely see your points. Um, like basically the case for G2 is the fact that Damwon aren't able to solve their shot calling issues, and Canyon just continues to underperform. That's really the case for G2. And G2, like, you know, as a group, Yankos Caps have been historically just really good at these sort of events. So we'll actually see how it turns out, and who knows? It might just be Damwon G2 because Jingdong end up choking at the world stage.
Yeah,
I believe that's what happened the last time around.
yeah.
I think they got out of groups, but they really disappointed in playoffs.
I believe so. I'm trying to think. It's hard to remember all the different names and stuff, but I believe it was
Yeah,
2020 Worlds where against Fnatic, wasn't it JDG versus Fnatic in the
it was
quarterfinals?
2020 Worlds. They lost to Suning 1-3.
Yeah, so that was semifinals then. Yeah, after the close series, right?
Trying to pull up the actual bracket. So they lost in quarters against Suning. That
Oh,
was the
okay,
year that Damwon won.
okay. Then it was the other way
Because
around then.
Suning, the real surprising one was Suning then beating Top Esports in the
Okay, it was
semis.
TS against Fnatic. That's
Yeah,
what it was. Okay, yeah,
yeah.
because I remember it was Karsa against Broxa at the time. But yeah, okay.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, every year I feel like one Chinese team, like one LPL team, always
Yeah.
like just shits the bed, doesn't perform, and just gets knocked out of groups. So
Yep.
with that in mind, moving on to Group A, I am going to unleash all my hopium, and I am going to predict Cloud9 is making it out of this group.
Yeah,
They've always done it.
I have Cloud9 and EDG. I think T1 won't make the cut. And uh I just watching T1, and perhaps this is just me, setting the bar low so that when T1 make it through, I'm not, eh, I'm happy because they exceeded my expectations. But yeah, they got Omega Giga clapped in finals. And they've had some interesting draft takes themselves. Um, that you can see them drop a game or two in this group because of just like a really strange draft approach. And overall, I think C9 have had somewhat better drafts, and EDG are just better cohesively. So I think those will be the difference makers for those two teams over T1.
Okay. Wait, so you have T1 making out of groups?
No, I have them
Oh,
in
okay.
third.
In third, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cause yeah, okay, I have T1 making out of groups because I thought EDG would be the one LPL team that doesn't
Mm.
make it out of groups.
Hmm.
That was my reasoning. So you have all
Yeah,
four
EDG's
in theory
like
making it out.
EDG's like the least flashy of the four LPL teams, I would say. Because Flandre doesn't have some of those pop-off games that you might see out of someone like, well, 369. Um, who are the other top laners? And
Um, Breathe, Bin.
yeah, 369, Breathe. It's not been Wayward, Qingtian. We'll see
Oh,
who
Wayward,
plays up
yeah.
there for top esports. But yeah, Flandre is not exactly quite as flashy as those players. And it does feel like it's mostly about Viper, which, if your win condition's Viper, that's not a bad win condition. Um, but yeah, and for EDG, it's mostly about the team play. Scout, of course, steps it up in playoff moments, so maybe he has yet another clutch performance. Um, but yeah, this is this will be a fun group. If C9 maintain their finals form, if they come out flat, then this isn't much of a group.
Listen, Cloud9 has always been the best NA team. They've always
Yeah.
performed the best. I believe I've got my hopium. I think this is the year Jensen will clap Faker. He's always said it. This is the year he'll finally do it. So I believe. I think Cloud9 is actually a decent team. I think Berserker is a monster, and I feel like he will destroy Gumayushi, and I feel like that is their edge against T1. I mean, against Viper is going to be a lot harder, but I think Berserker is like really, really mechanically good.
Yeah.
I feel like he plays like he's kind of like Shun in a way, where he plays like hyper aggressive. He's like
Yep.
trying to look for fights. Like his team fighting is so good. I feel like Cloud9 is a very solid North American team. Which, as I say this, that means they're probably not going to make it out of groups. I think as I hype them up, like their value is just going to go
Exactly.
down, down.
You've set expectations so high. Cloud9 have no other choice but to underwhelm.
Yeah,
That's the
I feel
only
like it's just
thing.
inevitable at this point.
Yeah.
But I
But
think
yeah.
T1 will probably get first. Cloud9 will barely get second, and then
Okay.
EDG will just I don't know one. I feel like one of these LPL teams is gonna choke. One of them. Well, actually,
Yeah.
maybe it's gonna be
Like,
RNG, and then
Yeah.
maybe CFO
Yeah.
makes it out. Well, then in
Yeah.
that case, then yeah, I hope Cloud9 fails, and then T1 EDG wins, so that way RNG is the choking LPL team. That would be better for me. So either way,
Yeah.
I win. If we go to quarters, I'll be
Exactly.
happy. If Cloud9 goes to quarters, I'll be happy. So it's a win-win situation. I cannot lose this. So I'm excited for Worlds. Okay, I think that's it. Anything else you want to talk about before we head out?
I think Worlds groups wise, this feels like at the group stage, this is going to be one of the most exciting years of group stages that we're going to have. Because it feels like the gap between East and West has somewhat closed, at least from LCK to the West. LPL, they just look too good, so we'll see how they perform on the international stage before we commit to further judgment. But this is going to be an incredibly exciting group stage, and then for play-ins, of course, Group A is going to be a party.
Oh yeah, I can't
Let's
wait.
go.
I'm actually excited to watch Group A. But okay, yeah, I think that's good. I think Worlds will be really fun. I think it's always fun, even though like the format could be better. I feel like every year is just like
Yes,
exciting to watch.
please.
Next
When are we
year,
getting double elim?
I'm praying for next year. If they don't do it for next year, all hope will be lost. But
Yeah, we're gonna lose all our viewers to Valorant, the other Riot game. Come
uh,
on, guys.
whenever people talk about Valorant and their formats, I'm like, oh, why? Why can't we just be like them? Like, why did
Yeah.
I guess Riot likes it's like the new child, you know? We're just like too old and nobody likes us, and it's like the new kid on the block. Everyone's like, oh, here, let me help you out. It's like, oh,
Yeah, they've
please.
already disappointed us for too long. I don't care about them anymore. We can't save them anymore. No.
Oh, is there anything you're working on or anything you want to shout out where people can find you, things you want to promote before we end the stream?
Just follow me on Twitter, NIT3STAR. I don't have anything else than that. Hopefully, we'll see what the PCS has in store. I'm very excited for next year. Um, and I guess we'll see how many PCS players will be in NA next year too.
Well, I hope it's no one on my team. I just hope that. But yeah, we'll see. That it's also another good reason to watch the PCS. Maybe you can see it's like watching NA Academy, except it's
Yeah,
from
exactly.
another
See the
region.
future of NA.
You can see the future of NA. Maybe one of our players goes off and helps NA finally do well at Worlds. That would be the
Yeah.
best I can hope for. But yeah, I guess yeah. So Nightser, thank you for being on the first episode. Thank you for being
Yeah.
here. It's been a lot
Thank
of
you
fun
for having
talking.
me.
We should do this more often. And yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun, and I will see you next time. Hey, bye.